All right, you guys seeing that? I see it. All right, first I'll apologize. My voice is cracking up here between allergies and the 19-degree night we had a few days ago. I seem to have slowly lost my voice, but I've reserved enough for today because I'm super excited to share our Acres product. So I'll start by saying this came up as an idea probably long before I joined AcreTrader. About probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. All of the farms that end up on the Trader platform go through a very intense due diligence process. You've heard various aspects of that in other talks. But what you really probably don't see is the amount of effort those farms have taken historically. Our farm team specifically would spend, they'd use multiple mapping softwares. So this is not new, right? Mapping software's been around a long time. There are a lot of them out there. But we were finding large gaps in our process with any one platform. So we're using 4 or 5, right? Google Earth and many others, won't list them all out, but having to pay multiple softwares. And at the end of the day, we still have to go visit the farm, and that's not going to change. The goal here is not to replace, to fully digitize the due diligence process, but we decided there was room to build a due diligence tool for our team in one place, so we could save all the information, the digital information associated with this due diligence process in one place and own that over time. And so that's really where acres.co came from. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. Next slide, or is there a clicker? Here we go. There we go. So mention the challenges. So the main challenge, again, is that we're using multiple softwares. But when we think about how maps support land valuation, there are a lot of pieces to that puzzle. So one, there's a whole bunch of data you need to get from a lot of different places. A lot of public data, government sources. I'll walk through a few of those. So you got a lot of layers. You need to bring them into one place. You need to make it customizable. So you're going to add your notes. You're going to add all of the information that's relevant to you across those layers. And then you need to make it shareable, right? So you'll find softwares that have a lot of this data, not all of it. You'll find softwares that are really easy to use or are shareable, but none of that comes together in one place. So you need all the layers, you need the analytics, the customizability, and then the shareability, right? We need to take all these mapping layers and make it available to clients, customers, land investors like yourselves, so that it's clear the kind of analysis and due diligence that went into that farm. So I'm going to share, I'm not sure that we have sound here, but we're going to try this out. So this will walk you through a due diligence process. Is that going to work? Okay, so there's not any sound on this. So I believe this was a farm in Pocahontas, Iowa, that was off market, came to us as an opportunity. And so this is an example of one of our farm team guys, Rob, who many of you have probably spoken with, walking through how we look at this. So we first look at the CLUs, so that divides out the tillable acres from the non-tillable acres. We then look through historical imagery and comp sales. So he's showing the comp sales. That's how we're going to drive evaluation, try to get a price per acre, a price per tillable acre. And then he'll toggle through those to see what the best matches are, right? When we look at comp sales, you get a huge variability. You don't know what improvements are on those comp sales from one farm to another. So some might be, $40,000 an acre. Well, that's probably not a good match. We know that's probably driven by improvements. So after we filter through all those comp sales, we match the ones that we know fit that property. We then dive into the soils. We start looking at CSR2 in Iowa's case, look at that soil score and start thinking about the price per acre, price per tillable acre, and price per PI, or productivity index. Again, in this case, CSR2 in Iowa. We start looking at the elevation profile, how that lines up with the soils. We see some low spots in the field, and then from there we might toggle down to The flood layer, so low elevation spots, are we in a FEMA flood zone? We want to check that out, see what kind of inundation there might be. From there, we click to the vegetation index, and this vegetation index is annual max, so we don't care that much about within season variability, but we can look across years, right? And so 2021, we see a spot in the field that's red, indicates that it's less productive. Maybe there was some inundation there. And we will look at that a couple of other years, and if the same spot is consistently red, then we know that there's maybe an issue with that part of the farm. From there, we switch over to our historical imagery layer. So USDA NAPE imagery has been around for about 20 years. So we've got about 10 years of that here. So we can look back and see if maybe there was an improvement on that property historically. Maybe there was some timber that was converted to a field that might affect production. And we're looking at that from that 10-year picture. We may also find inundation because these are typically leaf-on or mid-season pictures. And ultimately, I think Rob concludes that we passed on this farm because of some of those issues we were able to identify with these layers all in one space. So, let's see if I can, there we go. So, what we've built is tools for land investors. We have a series of layers of data to access seamlessly, where it's not seamless. There are some other tools out there that have some layers, but they're really difficult to use. So I'm going to walk through what some of that process looks like. So first, there's a lot of free government data. It's a great thing in the U.S. We have it. I don't know any other country that makes this kind of data publicly available. That said, it's all hidden away in government databases and very difficult to access. So any individual person trying to analyze one property, probably not worth it to go through all of that. So in this case, that's a flood layer, and then the cropland data layer produced by USDA shows us pretty high resolution of crop types on farms. I won't go through every single one of these layers, but it's still free, but we're making it less costly, or in this case, free. So it's less costly in the use case. So you as an investor can go in and analyze the properties of interest, whether that be soils, along with all the state-based soil scores or the national soil scores, the historical imagery, topography, and so forth. So we put that together, so now you've got all the layers. We also provide ability to customize, build reports for your land. So you can save your property of interest. You can, again, do some extra analysis, make some notes. You can save this to a PDF report. So if you're analyzing this, you want to send it to somebody else to get some deeper analysis, more custom insights. You can share that in PDF form or as a URL. So you can save your analysis there, ship it over to somebody in a URL link, and they can open it in their browser. That's what really does not exist anywhere else. Here is something we're really excited about. When we talk about usability and customization, there's nothing more handy than a mobile app. So this is 2 weeks out. It's our first version, so it doesn't quite have the power of the web app yet, but we're improving it all the time. I encourage you to check it out. It's on Apple and Google Play. Carry it with you, customize, look at landowners for free, look at the key insights, crop history and elevation and so forth, all on the go. So next, this part is not available in the free version, but it's to give you guys a little bit of a picture of how we think about all the public free layers and how we derive values for our properties. How do we know that the deal that we're putting on AcreTrader is valid, that it's fair, that it's the right price? It is not like real estate in the commercial space or the residential space in particular. There's residential, you've got tons and tons of data, right? You got 6 houses that sold in your neighborhood. You know, you've got 2-bed, 3-bed, 2-bath. You've got a lot of data attached to that. With farmland and rural land, it is not that way. Comparable sales are very difficult to find, often hidden away in proprietary databases, or housed by auction sites or in newsletters. And So we spend a lot of time, one, we glean comparable sales from 3,000 plus courthouses. So we have all the courthouse comps. Plus, we have a small team, a group of folks on my team, that go in, they peruse every auction site in the country for sale dates, sale prices, and they manually draw the boundaries around fields. So that's where we're at. So I came on as data science director, going to do a fancy data science. We're drawing boundaries around fields. So that should give you a picture of where technology is in valuing farmland. That's really moving the needle forward, is being able to draw boundaries and attach a value to it with a sale date. So we spend a lot of time doing this, converting legal deeds to comp sales that are easy to access, and not just easy to access, easy to collate into a report for a parcel. So I think I just talked through a lot of these sources, but courthouse comps, auctions, newsletters, regional websites, heavily proprietary and private. The other thing I was going to go forward. There we go. So I want to talk a little bit about where we're going. So we've built this. We noticed this with the farm team. We needed a better tool for due diligence, built that out. So now we've officially, for several months now, we have gotten rid of every other mapping software that we needed before. So we've replaced all of those tools. We now have a single tool that we trust and use for our due diligence. But we're not done yet. There's still more to do, and like I said, I'm interested in some data science. I'm interested in doing more than just taking government data from one place, moving it over here, sharing it around. That's great, but there's a lot more information that could be useful for an investor or for a broker, anybody that's interested in buying or selling land. And I used this concept from big to artisanal data. All data is big now, right? Every platform you look at now is technically big data. It's all in the cloud. You couldn't process it all on your own machine, and that's fine. But artisanal data is data that matters for the specific use case you're interested in. Doesn't matter how big the data is. When it boils down to the property I'm interested in, I want all the specific insights that tell me the value of that property, the risks associated with that property, and help me make a better decision. So I want to highlight a few things that we're working on. One is water security. So we had a great panel on water out west. We've got now I think there's California and a number of others. I'll show an example of California. The political boundaries matter, right? We talk about politics and how that drives water use or potential risk for that land. So those state water layers we're building in, we've got California, we've got about 8 more states on the way, including Arizona, Idaho, Georgia, Oregon, and a number of others. In addition to that, we're working with some satellite imagery to identify irrigated and non-irrigated land. So it's another huge driver, particularly when we're thinking about valuing land or getting some insights digitally before we arrive. So that's one that we're working on that is not yet available. Surface and groundwater maps, another component of water security that we're looking into. We've got maps for several states that will be in our tool before too long. Looking into commodity basis prices. This will be out in the next couple of weeks. So county level, daily prices for all the major crop types. That gives you an idea of what the supply and demand is in your county relative to the others in surrounding areas. I'm excited about that in particular because most people in the sort of land mapping valuation space don't think about this as an important topic, but there's 2 things farmers look at every day. One's basis prices and the other's weather. So if you don't have those pieces, you're not going to be able to make as clean of a decision. So those basis prices, particularly over time, right? September futures price for the past 10 years, for example. Are you a heavy supply county or a heavy demand county? And how is that trending? So that trend is what might help you make a better decision about purchasing a farm in that area. Last but not least, we heard a great session about timber yesterday. I'm really excited about this one. We kicked off about a month ago. We are working to build a timber maturity layer. It's going to take us some time. We've got some test sites that we're looking at. So this would tell us basically on an annual basis how old the timber stand is, so at a parcel level. So we'll have eventually, we would like to have deciduous, evergreen, and permanent crops. We'll see what we can do, right? There's definitely research here. Some of this is going to be possible and some's not. What I can say about our platform is we will not put something on there and not tell you about the data integrity, something that I hold very close. I think it's very important, particularly for land investors. So you won't ever see us stamp a number like this timber stand is X years old without some metric of uncertainty, right? We'll have an asterisk with some info. Here's how confident or inconfident we are in this metric. But it gets you a little bit closer for when you get on the ground, right? So like I said earlier, we're not saying don't go visit the property. We're not saying don't, our farm team and timber teams are always going to visit the properties. But if they can ask better questions when they get on the ground, it improves the efficiency of that valuation process. So here's our California water layer. We'll be adding wells to this in the near future as well. So this gives you the districts, the Sigma priority basins and GSAs. There will always be some limit to what we can provide, but our hope is to get you close, and then you can provide custom layers, right? So if you were in a specific GSA and your program gets approved, we'll see, then you could add some information about what those GSPs, I'm trying to remember what that acronym stands for. It's the program that's regulates your water use. So you could add your own notes for that specific GSP. So commodity basis prices, here's a little sneak peek for that. And again, this is a wireframe, it's an example, but it'll give you the idea. So we'll have number 2 corn, soy, and hard red winter wheat, major commodities in the Midwest. Be able to see what kind of supply and demand is in your county. And last but not least, so I showed you those comp sales. This is a tool that will be out within the next month, and we're really excited about it. It is our portfolio tool for valuation. So as you go in and create, you select your parcel or your land of interest, you can go in and save that parcel and toggle through and use advanced filtering to match comps to that place. So you'll be able to shrink out all of the improved land that doesn't necessarily relate to yours. You'll be able to drill down to that price per tillable acre or per PI in a way that's far more efficient than anything out there. So to date, a lot of folks go into, they'll get their courthouse comps. They don't have access to the additional comps we've put in, but they'll use courthouse comps. They will literally look at a website, put it in Excel, and then do their valuation analysis. Again, that's where we're at in land valuation, and we're trying to move that needle so you can analyze hundreds of properties. You can match those comps to those properties, toggle the filters, generate reports, and have your own sandbox. So we're pretty excited about this. So all of this together is our acres.co platform. Really excited about it. Check out the app if you can on your phone. Check out the web app. And if we can do demos, if you have feedback, we have a great team of folks that have been working on this for a year and a half. We often take feedback. I've gotten feedback from investors. We've gotten feedback from some of our growers on things they want. So a good example of that is the WAPI, or the Weighted Average Productivity Index in Indiana. Nobody else uses it, but in Indiana, it's super important. So we put it in the pipeline. We can't respond immediately to those kinds of requests, but we will put them in the pipeline and listen to what you want to see. So with that, thank you, and I'm going to invite a few colleagues up for some Q&A. So I'll have Justin, Alex, and Sandeep, all leaders on our Acres team. So if you have questions or thoughts, we'd love to entertain those. So if you guys want to come up for a few questions, we can. I'm going to take a drink of water.
Yes. Are you planning on implementing any measurement tools like, on Google Earth, you can go in there and draw a pivot circle, or, looking for improvements?
Yes, so the first iteration of that will be coming very soon, which is just the normal drawing lines or several lines that can connect to get the kind of linear measurement, and then on top of that, we'll do area measurement as well.
So are all layers available for all states? It sounds like there's manual processes on some of the layers. Are you focused in certain geographies, or is it?
The majority of layers are available. There are some things that are state-specific, like Aaron was referring to, soil score, and then the water security right now is California, Nebraska, adding others. So there are many that are state-specific, but most of the standard layers that you would see in the tool for a free or even premium user is across the continental U.S.
Transaction values?
Correct. Comps will be in every state. We have the more proprietary comps are sometimes concentrated in specific regions, depending on availability. In some states, we can't get that sort of data in, but for a majority, it's spread across the continental U.S.
How about land elevation?
Yes. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, if we measure in a field, we want to measure one end from the other. We want to know the drop in the elevation.
Okay, so we do have the elevation layer, and you can look at the topography and even customize the increment that you want to see down to, I believe it's 5 feet, if I'm not mistaken. But if you want to see a specific line that you draw in the elevation change, we don't have that type of functionality.
How do third-party appraisals figure in here?
You want to? Sure.
So right now, we're not integrated with any third-party platform, but we do have an ag valuation tool that's coming out. So for a lot of rural loans, you can actually do not a full appraisal. You're not required by law to have that. So a lot of banks will opt to do what's called a low-risk collateral valuation. And so we've actually got that tool coming out within the next month, so you can go through. Now you have to have information about the parcel that you're interested in. It's not it's not an AVM where it's going to spit out the value immediately. But what we've done is built this out where it'll pull data from our layers, and then you'll go through and it'll have a series of questions about improvements. You know, is it a barn? Is it a house? What's the square footage? How much is tillable? What's the irrigation like? Things that we won't ever have on a parcel level. And then at the end of the day, that's a stamped approved process put together by an appraiser that works with us. So that can be piped into other, whether it's an appraisal process, handed off to your loan officer or whatnot. So not integrated as of right now, but we have our own valuation process. So, sorry, explain that. Sure.
Others, for those they need an appraisal, so they can do that. How much does that figure into your?
So in our case, on the mapping side, I think that would probably be more of a question for our farm team, honestly, because we're not the ones that stamp our final price on what our farms would go for, but that appraisal would go to our farm team as they do due diligence and yeah.
What is your data science? What's the interaction between you and the farm team?
So right now, we've built the tool not just for the farm team, but for any land investor, land broker, any institution that's conducting valuations more generally. And so our farm team has replaced their due diligence process of other mapping softwares with this one. But ultimately, we're just a tool in their toolkit because we don't have all the financial information from the farm. So they're using ours to grab all the other data, and then they'll merge that with the financial data that's needed to make that ultimate decision.
Is there going to be a way to look at the data possibly differently if an investor or somebody wants to look at it a little differently, kind of like a Tableau or a click type functionality within the tool, or is it possible to download a CSV or something to take some of that data and maybe move it into a click or a Tableau, something like that?
Yeah, we have had some level of demand for that. Obviously, we have the generate the PDF report, and you can say which insight, we call them insight layers, on the selected parcels that you have. So you can export that PDF form, but there is a demand to pipe out some of the raw data, particularly comp data. And so we're looking at ways that we can either support that or build that into an existing workflow. So there is a demand for that. We just have to calculate kind of the risk of, is it proprietary data or public data? And we're really trying to dig into the best use of that. Some of the folks that have approached us, we actually found that, augmenting their current process with the portfolio tool that we are launching soon would actually be an improvement than what they initially intended by piping out that raw data as well. So just weighing those different factors.
Good. Historical evaluations, is there going to be an opportunity to see a snapshot in time of a year ago, the farm would have been this price, 2 years ago would have been this price, and kind of get that historical evaluation. And then what I've seen with some of the other platforms, whether it's AcreValue or some of the other stuff, is what it says is not realistic to what it's actually, the market is giving. So how does that play?
Yeah, so we do look at that. There are tools that try to stamp a down to the cent valuation, and we've looked at that closely. We see a very large deviation from what actual and what's being reported, and so what Aaron was referring to too is that's not really what we want to recreate. Maybe he can expand on this too. I don't know that we'll be able to confidently, if you select a parcel, tell you the exact trend of the value of that selection over time. What we probably can and will get to is at least giving you a market trend of the market area that it's in, because we'll have enough comp data over time that we can then show that change over time, but certainly I would guess not down to the selection or parcel level, but potentially county or market area. And Aaron, you can expand on that if you'd like.
Yeah, so one of the things we're working on with the advanced filtering tool, so as Alex said, the idea that you're going to get a specific value for that parcel over time is probably kind of a fool's errand. But we could give you a price per acre for different time frames. So if you wanted to go back and look at comps from 3 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, then you could look at that trend at price per acre at the county or the market level.
Yeah, I think for an investor to say, hey, I want to invest in this farm.
Yep.
Here's what the valuation has done over the last several years in the year.
Right.
If the trend continues,
Yep.
we should see this, but we could always plateau out.
Sure. And so the other piece of information that's pretty critical there that does give us a little bit more insight into the parcel level is we have a 10-year property tax layer. And so we'll be showing trends in property taxes, and that gives you a pretty good, it's not a valuation per se, but it gives you an idea of where that area is going. Particularly important in counties with, growing county seats, lots of development going on. You're going to see those taxes increasing on properties. So we'll have some layers like that assist.
Is there much of a time lag in the data sources you're using for them being updated and you getting the data, or can you give us an idea about that?
Yes. So courthouse data, we ingest on a monthly basis, but typically, unfortunately, none of these courthouses are coordinated. And so some of them are reporting their comps on a 3 or 6 month basis. So they're going to be quite behind relative to the ingest time frame that we have in place. So some counties, though, they've got a good digitized process. It becomes available, and you'll see it within a month. 6 weeks is probably a better estimate. But within 6 weeks, we often will get some of those on. And then, of course, the recency of comps matters a lot, particularly if you've been watching markets the past 2 years. We've seen some pretty wild growth and volatility. So that's why I've got several people on my team that literally are out there looking at auctions and sales and putting them in day after. We're within the same week. So we have, obviously, we can't do the whole country that way. So we focus primarily on the Midwest. We also do some work, that kind of manual work in non-disclosure states. There's 10 states in the U.S. that you do not have to report to the county courthouse what your final sale price was. Many still do, but you can imagine the people that don't are likely the largest sales. And so our team spends some time digging into those and try to get as many in our platform as possible.
So 2 questions actually. Can you talk about the integration between AcreTrader, the platform, and Acres as far as, let's say, functionality, like I'm looking at something in AcreTrader, I want to open it in Acres.
Yep, sure.
And vice versa, if I'm in Acres, can I see some of the analysis that was done by AcreTrader for similar properties?
Sure. So I think we're working on a lot of that integration now, and the first stage is complete and gets to your first question, which is when you look at a trader farm on the trader website, we now have our acres.co embedded map on that. So you're going to see the limited functionality in that embed, but you could open it directly into the Acres platform and dive deeper if you want. Right now, we don't store or make available the AcreTrader farms to the public for free, but at some point there may be more integration to do that. So it wouldn't be exposed in Acres, but you have full access to that as an investor. So we don't hide any of that from you. Yeah.
What about user input or verification, like Google Maps,
Mhm.
where you can say, this is my address, this is what this is? You guys have where you can input maybe irrigation improvements or what you got planted or verify
Yes.
information that you guys have?
Yes, so on the web app, and ultimately I think we'll bring some of that customization to the mobile app. But right now on the web app, you can go in, save your land, you can claim your land. Once you've done that, you get access to a suite of customization options. Okay, this field's a pivot, this field's irrigated, this field's not. Custom notes, whatever, this is a corn soy rotation, whatever you want to say about it, you have that ability.
Then you can see that from if somebody else did. I mean, it'd be public information.
That's not public, no. No, that would be your sandbox, right? So associated with your account, so not used or available to anyone else. Yeah, I think that kind of, we want to maintain that data privacy. One more? Okay.
I have a couple of questions. I'll try to keep it brief.
Sure.
So following on to your question, it sounds like there's two layers. There's almost like a public layer that's on Acres, and there's a layer where you're adding in more valuation information that you're using for due diligence for investment.
Correct.
You're saying nothing is kept from the investor. So when you add in the valuation data, is that exposed on AcreTrader?
I don't know the answer to that.
Sorry, could you repeat the question again on the valuation?
There's two layers. It sounds like there's almost like a free layer that's part of acres.co, and then there's additional analysis that gets done by the AcreTrader, like the farm team on valuations and other things like that. Do investors on AcreTrader have full access to see like the additional data that the farm team is putting in, or any additional value add data that may not be exposed on acres.co?
Yeah, so the way that AcreTrader packages that up is through their process. And so as Aaron was talking about earlier, Acres is one tool in their toolkit as part of figuring out what the value of a farm is and getting the right ones up onto the platform. They package that information on the AcreTrader website itself. So in there, you'll see the financial information and the summary there as far as like all the deep down in the weeds notes. I'm sure you can talk to the farm team if you want to get more detail, but that's not all widely exposed, just in the sense of not wanting to waste your time and digging onto the details, but giving all the highlights, summaries, but that'll all be on the AcreTrader website itself.
Yeah, and my second question, I don't know if you guys can answer this. So you raise money, right? Do your investors see this platform? Are you getting pressure, or do they expect this to be monetized, where this data is going to be sold to third parties that are involved with AcreTrader?
Sure, I think that's part of the growth of this product as well, right? When we first envisioned it, it was we had this need and the farm team to help improve diligence, but a lot of people have this need as well. There's other farmland funds out there, there's investors out there, there's banks out there, there's appraisers out there, all of which have found different sense of value in this tool itself. And so yes, that's definitely part of the strategy broader for the company as well of how do we monetize this and who wants to buy this and why, and so that's part of the conversation that we're having currently right now.
To your first question, Shew,